Welcome to the Raj Kotecha Show, #1 podcast in Dubai. Joining me as always, moments away from asking for the biggest sick leave of his life, is Alex.
What's up?
Why you got a sick leave?
I'm getting surgery on my knee.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a future episode. But today we're talking about Will Smith. It's an emergency pod, ladies and gentlemen, because I feel like there's a lot to unpack. I want to speak on it. You know, it is celebrity, but that's not the reason why. For me, it's a moment for content and internet culture. It's a moment which transcends multiple generations of entertainment. It's a moment that the hip-hop world, I think, has a voice on as well. So, you know, a lot to unpack. So no need to tell anybody, because everyone's probably seen at least 44 times the clip at the Oscars of Will Smith, who jumps up on stage and gives Chris Rock a healthy slap in the face. Moments after Chris Rock made a bold joke because Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, does not have hair, which we find out as the day goes on is as a result of alopecia. So firstly, a couple of things that are no joke. So let's just put that out there. Firstly, if you find yourself losing your hair, that's no joke, because in general, if you ask 100 people walking down the street, is hair loss something that kind of messes with them under any circumstances, whether it be male pattern baldness, alopecia, or as a result of any kind of like significant medical therapies, then yeah, it's something that you really don't want to joke about. Is violence, especially on a platform like that, appropriate? No. Nobody woke up today hoping to be in a world post Will Smith, legendary musician, actor, TV star, and investor, and so much more, philanthropist, slapping Chris Rock, legendary actor, comic, producer, and so much more. These are two A-listers. You know, this is two Godzillas. This is two King Kongs. This is two just elite level, God level, celebrities. Do you know what I mean?
That you'd never expect to get into what they did today.
Yeah, in our culture, in the hip hop culture, in the world that I grew up in, these are what Elon Musk is to tech. Just for people that are from outside the hip hop culture and outside music culture, this is what Chris Rock means. Chris Rock his jokes have transcended decades. They've been quoted in so many hip hop records. Will Smith is magical. You know, he's cut from the cloth of Prince, Michael Jackson, not just in terms of music, but just in terms of how important he is. When I go to Africa, I see Will Smith painted on the side of buses. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like he's a different level. Yeah. And here we are in a situation where Will Smith has obviously slapped this guy. What was your first reaction when you saw it?
What the hell just happened?
Right. Did you think that immediately, like at the moment of the slap? Because at the moment of the slap, I thought it was part of a shtick.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. At first look, I was kind of like, no, actually, I guess not, because I saw it from the video that got sent to my group chat.
Yeah.
And so that was the first time I saw it, and I had seen the responses of my friends' comments before I saw the video.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So I saw they were debating whether it was staged or not. So I went in to look at the videos, like already knowing that like there's two sides.
Right.
Yeah. So I didn't have my proper first reaction on like not knowing anything that happened.
Right. Well, that's so interesting, because I just got sent a clip. Big up to my man Sal. He sent me the clip at 20-7 this morning. It'd have been around that same time. It'd probably been around 8 o'clock in the evening, LA time, the previous night. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, this is cool. And then I hit play. And I must admit, because I saw the full setup on that clip, which was him making the joke about the white couple before, because they were both nominated. Yeah. He said, listen, if the girl doesn't win, the guy cannot win, and you better pray that Will Smith wins. And I thought that was a brilliant joke. And then it was a nice segue over to Will. And when he made that joke, Will Smith was laughing. Then he made another joke when he made, and what was interesting about this clip is that Chris said, Jada, I love you.
Yeah, it wasn't coming out.
And he goes, G.I. Jane 2, I'm looking forward to whatever the case may be. And please, guys, if you're listening to this podcast, don't expect me to get everything word for word right. You know, I'm paraphrasing. Everyone's seen it plenty of times. But and then Will Smith walks up onto the stage. It's deliberate. It's measured. It requires an investment of time and energy.
Yeah.
And so you're not thinking for a second what's coming next. And you said to me before we started recording the show, you were like, well, what did Chris Rock think was going to happen? And I said, well, anything.
Anything but that,
Anything
basically.
but that, because...
like anything.
Yeah, because, you know, producers didn't run on stage, runners didn't run on stage, security
Security,
didn't run on
nothing.
stage. You're like, if Will Smith's going to jump up and do a bit, whatever it is, that bit that Will Smith's going to do is going to enhance that moment.
Yeah.
You know, even if he takes... Chris Rock pulls his pants down and slaps his ass hard, you're like, okay, cool, that looked painful, it probably was, and it was embarrassing for Chris Rock, and and maybe they don't get along in real life, but it wasn't a full contact MMA style blow
act
to the
of
face.
violence, basically.
An act of violence, yeah. So, again, from me, from my real time watching it, I watch it, I see Will Smith sit back down. Remember, prior to seeing Will stand up, we saw him laughing.
Yes.
So we don't know that his opinion of that moment has changed or has been influenced by Jada Pinkett or anything like that. So you then when he sits down and then he says, keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth. Now that is something that is not a traditionally structured sentence. That comes from the culture.
Yeah.
Keep somebody's name out your mouth. It's like, that's some real hood shit. So when he said that, I was like, well, that's an interesting choice of words. And then Chris Rock goes, it's G.I. Jane, you know, it is what it is. It's a joke. But then the second time that Will said it, he said it with even more bass in his voice. And it was followed by Chris Rock going, dude. Now, when you see two guys like that being like, dude, like when someone says dude, it's like, yo, dude, you're out of line. Like, chill.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so when he used that language, and dude is like not from the culture of keep her name out of your effing
Not at
mouth.
all.
Like, one's very, very kind of hygienic and sterile, and one is super gangster. And so I was like, okay, something's clearly gone wrong. Then there's this awkward bit of silence. And in that piece of silence, he goes, keep her name out your mouth. And he goes, okay, I will. And he goes, then I don't know if you watch back, but Chris goes, boy, I could. Like,
and then he stops. And it's
Cri-
not even like proper clearly. You can't hear. It's like kind of like under, like while he was thinking, should I finish it?
Yeah.
He's like, nah.
And so before we deep dive into Will, listen, guys, you want to stick around for the rest of this podcast because we've got some incredible points of reference. But Chris Rock handled it like a genius. I mean, he was approached with his arms behind his back. His arms only came out temporarily to rebalance him and then went right back behind his back. And I'm like, boy, he ate that punch the way that the Bermuda Triangle eats ships. Like,
He wasn't phased, basically.
have you ever seen, I mean, I thought the guy was like made out of sponge.
Even his thoughts weren't messed up. Like, after he was able to just get back into like, just played like how he's supposed to play it.
Yeah, he went back to playing it straight. He said,
Yeah.
we're handing out best documentary. And then he messed that up and he goes, we're handing out the Grammy, or we're giving here to give away a Grammy.
But it's not like he stumbled multiple times. It was
Bro,
like, it was clean.
If I was on the receiving end of that slap, I would forget my name, my PIN number,
Everything.
my phone number.
Everything.
Honestly, I would literally I would be like, yo, my name's Kyle and I'm white and I surf. Like, I wouldn't even know, like, because Will Smith's not a small lad.
No.
And he's been working out since the pandemic to try and get into shape. So
yeah,
there
his
was
documentary just recently came out about that.
there was some muscle there. There was some real muscle there. So you know, well done on Chris Rock, because Chris Rock has just given a masterclass in professionalism, very much balanced against a masterclass in unprofessionalism. Now let's talk about that. You know, professionalism is one paradigm to look at it through, but really what we see here is a moment of frustration, anger, and a moment of mental weakness, really.
Yeah, for sure.
What's interesting about this moment is it's a counterweight moment to a lot of the dialogue and narrative that Will's been putting out in the years leading up to his book, during his book run. What I'm talking about is mental health, talking, vulnerability, therapy, a lot of the kind of progressive thoughts that are now becoming commonplace in like modern male culture. He's a big proponent of it. He's part of this kind of like what I call the brown wellness mafia, which is like you look at him, you look at Deepak Chopra, who came way before, Oprah. Nowadays you've got Jay Shetty, you've got Sadhguru, you've got all these different people that are the avengers of the brown wellness mafia, and they speak a lot about, you know, a better way of living. And it's so interesting because I know for a fact from talking to people, and by the way, big up to Jay Shetty, because I've got a Jay Shetty story which I'll share one day in the future. That dude actually lives his truth. He's actually one of the nicest dudes you're ever going to meet. I don't know the rest of them, but you look at these people and you look at their lives and you go, man, they're so mindful. They exercise, they meditate, they work out their problems, they dance together, they joke together, they can sit around and have really meaningful, calm, patient dialogue. And I wonder where I can get to that level of like wokeness and awake, like that level of consciousness where they operate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Balanced against really one of the most hood things we've ever seen in our lives, which is, I mean, Chris Rock even said, he goes, Will Smith just slapped the shit out of me.
Yeah. Like nobody would expect that from him.
Yeah, and
like
Philly is known for like goons. Like there's you might not know this because of your age, but there was a guy who was signed to Jay-Z, and his name is Beanie Siegel. Made brilliant records. He's from Philadelphia. There was a period of time where Jay-Z went down to Philadelphia, signed a bunch of rappers. Meek Mill's from Philadelphia, right? He wasn't signed to Jay, but I'll just give you the example of the kind of guys that you get from there. Super street guys, shoot first, ask questions last guys. And there's clips of Beanie Siegel, like, where they're like, not on a red carpet, but they're, they're going into something big, and Beanie will jump over a barrier and punch a fan.
Oh.
Like we're talking
straight
about,
up.
Straight up like Rottweiler behavior. Yeah. So that's that Philly behavior. And I wonder when you look at all this, wellness talk and all of the work that these guys have done, I do believe that's genuine coming from Will Smith. I do believe that he believes in that, which makes you wonder, what is that man going through in real life to make him go from an American darling, really, an American sweetheart.
Yes.
That laugh, that Will Smith laugh is unlike no other laugh. It fills a room. I know folks that work with him. He fills the room with really positive energy. He's a good dude. And we just saw the polar opposite of that, like the opposite end of the spectrum. And you got to ask yourself, like, what is that dude going through? What is that dude going through to demonstrate a behavior turned all the way up to 10 out of 10 version of that behavior where, you're just like, damn, I think we now have a pre-Will Smith, pre-slap Will Smith, and we have a post-slap Will Smith, because we expect this. Have you ever seen Birdman on Breakfast Club? Put some respect on my name.
Yes.
So you expect it from a Birdman. Yeah. You don't expect it from Will Smith.
No, not at all. But there has to be a reason for why I did it. Either it brought, like, just the moment and how he felt in that moment brought something from the past back up, and like that's just the first thing he thought of doing and executed on it.
Or he was told like a soldier, go handle this.
Yeah. Because
he was laughing when the joke was first made.
Yeah.
And then there's a period of time where Chris is saying, that's just a light wonder. We don't know what's happening between Jada and Will right there. We know that Jada did not laugh and did not find it amusing.
She even nodded, or she rolled her eyes.
Yeah, she didn't appreciate it. Yeah. Will seemed to. And then there was an exchange where not only did Will go from seeming to appreciate the joke to he went beyond neutral down to where Jada was, which is not appreciating it, and then another level where he was like, I'm prepared to put my muscle behind this.
Fair.
On a night where there was a big expectation that he was going to win. He won the Oscar, so big up to him, but like there was a high expectation that he was going to win. A lot of people that have seen that film say it's a very special film.
Have you seen it?
I've not seen it, but a lot of people say it's a great piece of work. And so he's got to know that, I'm in the upper 25% chance of winning this. Like I'm in the upper 25% league of shot of winning this. And then here we are. We've got this crazy situation. Now, what I thought would be interesting to share, and I know that we're already 14 minutes in, but there's a couple of clips I wanted to share. One place I'd like to draw your attention, as where I put my attention as I was thinking about this, is a few days ago, Will Smith released a video on his YouTube channel called "My Friends Had a Lot to Say About My Memoirs." Now, in that clip, and this is, I urge you to go watch this if you're interested in this story, there's a lot of expansion on the book and his reading of it and his writing of it. He sat around a table with friends, a psychiatrist, Jay Shetty, Jazzy Jeff, big up to Jazzy Jeff, and a few others. And he reads a bit from his book, and then his psychiatrist friend chimes in as well. Run the audio.
The entire basis for my self-esteem was foundationally dependent upon whether or not my woman was happy. My self-image was inexorably bound up in my woman's opinion and approval of me.
Women bring out rage in you like nothing else. So it's like, what's that about?
I have no no idea.
He's just looking at us more women on that side of the table.
So what happens here is, he just kind of deflects away from the subject. And if you've seen him doing therapy before, he's been criticized for that. He's been criticized for when stuff gets serious, he kind of like makes a joke out of it. I understand that. That seems like a behavior you'd expect from people.
Yeah, for sure.
Certain types of people, me as well. So, it's one of those kind of things. Looking at that clip, it really makes, and I know that people are going to unearth this as days go on. This is a guy who's experienced a lot of serious trauma, growing up. He's been open about it. Coming from where he comes from, being black, being from Philly, being of color in general is, I can tell you it's a little bit tougher than not, but being from where he's from, you package in all the socio-economic stuff, you package in the fact that it's America, everything's a little bit more extreme over there. You've got ghettos and a very different struggle, especially if you're black. He carried all that before he became the Fresh Prince. Before he won the first ever Grammy and boycotted it. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Him and Jazzy Jeff won the first ever Grammy for hip hop music.
Really?
For rap. Yeah, ever.
Do you remember what year that was?
88.
Okay, yeah.
So, and they boycotted it, and there was a reason why they boycotted it. Then he goes on to become one of the biggest TV stars in the world. Then he goes on to become the biggest movie star in the world. And I say not one of. When he was the biggest movie star in the world, he was the biggest movie star in the world.
Fair.
You know what I mean? So that just is what it is. That climb, that level of success, that journey, that trauma, combined with, even until recently, the level of ridicule that he faces, the entanglement moment, Red Table Talk, where, Jada Pinkett Smith talks about essentially being in a relationship, a real relationship with August Alsina, rumors of him being gay, rumors of them having an open marriage. I mean, this is like, the dude is dealing with Michael Jackson and Prince levels of attention, Michael Jackson and Prince levels of controversy. It might not shape out the same way because we're living in a different era. And, when Michael Jackson was going through controversy, that's all you looked at. Like, for 3 or 4 days, it would be just like what we're experiencing with Will today. It was like that for like a week or even longer. Michael sleeps with monkeys. Michael sleeps in an oxygen chamber. Michael does this. Michael's nose was made out of some sort of skin, whatever it is. So he's dealt with bursts of that, like internet doses of that. And there's got to be a lot going on inside him. So firstly, again, for the kind of record that he's had all this time, I do pray that, whatever it is gets worked out, and whatever help he needs to work through this time, both psychiatrically and professionally, he gets, because we're not gonna throw dirt and we're not gonna throw old vegetables at him.
No, definitely not.
We're not doing
it's
that.
not like that. No,
it's not like that at all. It's not that real. But there is definitely some need for like some sort of progress here. Another thing that you said, but let's keep it Hollywood for a second.
Yeah.
It wasn't his only time on stage. He actually did end up winning Best Actor and went out on stage. And let's just talk a little bit about the speech. Can you do me one favor? Just make a note of the Denzel bit, but just go to the beginning of the speech.
Okay.
I want to talk about this because
I don't think this
communications
is
guy.
the whole speech though.
Yeah, run it from the top. There you go.
Oh, man. Richard Williams was a fierce defender of his family.
He almost gets a bit of a laugh for that.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, keep going. Even he smiles there.
In this time in my life, in this moment, I am overwhelmed by what God is calling on me to do and be in this world. Making this film, I got to protect Ingenue Ellis, who was one of the strongest, most delicate people I've ever met. I got to protect Sanaya and Demi, the two actresses that played Venus and Serena.
Just pause it one sec. We won't need to show it on screen. We'll just, on the video version, everyone's seen it already, but just listening to that, you can see that the tears really, really start here. And what's interesting, as a comms guy, I think to myself, it's quite interesting because he the first thing he talks about is Richard, his character.
Yes.
Being a strong protector of his family. So straight away, he's built overlapping narrative
Of what just happened.
What just happened, right?
Yeah.
Like an analog. Then he talks about God asking him to do things. So now he's basically deflecting the decision. It seems to me like a bit of the responsibility away from him, the conscious living human being. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And again, that's weird because it goes against the whole wellness thing about like being mindful and conscious. And he's spoken about in many interviews, like, you got to stop, you got to ask yourself, you got to do this, you know, like almost being like stoic in his thought process, which when we look at that as outsiders, we go, wow, that's an elevated way of thinking. Now he's talking about his character being, you know, a certain way. He's talking about what God's requiring of him. And then now he's also making sure that he gets the applause for what co-stars. Yeah. Because when you do these kind of things, you kind of have an obligation to ensure that you share the credit with the people that helped you get there. Especially in a film. If it's going to be a co-actor, or he's an actress, which is weird. I've not heard the word actress for a while. So that's where we are at this part of the speech, a minute in. Run it again.
I'm being called on in my life to love people and to protect people and to be a river to my people. And I know to do what we do, you got to be able to take abuse. You got to be able to have people talk crazy about you. In this business, you got to be able to have people disrespecting you. And you got to smile and you got to pretend like that's okay. But Richard Williams, and what I loved, thank you, D. Denzel said to me a few minutes ago, he said, at your highest moment, be careful, that's when the devil comes for you.
So what's interesting about that is that he says, you know, again, he's talking about all these other characters, but watching it again for the God knows how many times there, he goes, I'm being asked to love people and protect people. I kind of feel like, watching it that particular time, I think to myself, was he asked to defend her honor? Because if he was asked to defend, like, here's what I'm trying to say. Did he say to her, yo, are you going to let him talk to me like that? After laughing?
Well, yeah, when the camera cuts. And that could be an answer nobody ever figures out.
Well, somebody has that angle, or somebody would have seen them, because somebody at that point, even in the room, would have had their eye on Will, right?
Yes, but if there's no proof, then you never know.
I'm saying, in the absence of proof, like, could he say, like, yo, she tapped me on the knee, saw me laughing, tapped me on the knee and said, really? You're going to just let that happen here on the biggest stage? You're going to let that happen here in front of thousands of my peers in the room, tens of millions of people online?
It's very possible,
right?
That happened.
And he's crying up there. He goes, I'm being asked to love and defend people. And he's saying that he had to do the ultimate thing, or what he thought was the right thing to do, on the night where he was going to have the most amount of celebration of his career and be the most lauded. So
on the night he least wanted to do the act he did, maybe.
I'm sure that dude would have done that on any given night for her. If he's seen Chris Rock at the petrol station, he could have laid him out and been like, yo, if anybody caught it, if the CCTV makes it to TMZ, fine. No problem. If it happens at the after party, fine. But if she said, you're going to deal with it now and right now, and he's like, well, this is going to either cost me my marriage or what the hell's going to happen. You know, imagine this. Yeah. Imagine upsetting her on that night. And then with that energy going to accept your Oscar. And with that energy then going to the after parties and taking pictures as quote unquote happy families. On a night where your wife was disrespected and you were the most lauded. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That must have been a rock and a hard place that he was not trying to go into. So he probably just pulled the parachute and said, look, I don't know if this punch is going to make sense or not, but I don't have the time to think about it. I'm going to smack this dude. And then whatever comes of it, comes of it.
And he's just going to figure it out after.
Just figure out afterwards. Because she's told me, let's say, and we're making it up. Now we are getting into like gossip territory. But she's told me that I'm not going to be okay with this. If you don't address this right now, don't expect me to even be here when your award shows up. I'm out. So you can deal with an empty chair and the rumors that come from that. Right?
Yeah, it's very possible.
So he did what he did. I really feel bad for the brother. I hope he's okay. He's it's a real moment. But I just want to say this again. He made it about Richard. He kind of outsourced his operating system and his decision making.
For sure.
My character, let me give a lot of credit and dilute. Let me make sure that at least the applause these people deserve they get. His co-stars. Let me talk about God. Let me talk about for a minute what I believe he feels like he was going through, being asked to protect. And at the end, you said, and I kind of agree with you listening to you, that maybe Denzel did say from side stage or from somewhere, "We love you, Will." And he goes, "Thank you, D." Maybe Denzel. Yeah. Then he goes, then he flicked his trophy over to the side where he's like, "Oh, Denzel told me it's at the times where you're like,
on your lowest that the devil, or the highest that the devil will
come for you."
Yeah.
And so again, think about the themes he introduced in his talk.
Yes.
The character.
But it's also very possible he's up there for the movie he was in and like for the award he won. So that speech could have even been said without the act he did. It fits in both ways. He could have said the exact same thing without having slapped Chris, and it still would have worked. And he could only be crying because what he said, what he does in the movie exactly relates to what the action he just did.
You're right. He could have said it and he could have delivered it in a very different way. It could have been certain people have a single moment, right? There are certain speeches, Halle Berry when she got her Oscar, the Martin Luther King speech. There's so many great moments when Eminem went on stage and thanked Big Daddy Kane and all these big rappers many years ago. There's a moment where you're like, if I'm going to do it once, I'm going to do it right. I'm going to get these points across. I also think one reason why he's crying is this moment's not the version I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because he deserves that. I've not seen the film, but I mean, damn, take a bunch of films that he deserves it for.
Yeah, for
sure.
But
he deserves that award, and he's up there, and it's bittersweet. He's getting the greatest award in his industry, something he's probably looked at his whole acting career, and something that exists from before when he was born. And he's like, I want one of these. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get one. And we all know Will Smith works hard.
Yeah,
like that's not something that's hidden. And he's got to get it under these circumstances. It's got to be so horrible to get it in those circumstances. And not only in those circumstances, the roof could have fallen through or whatever. There's things that can happen, acts of God. But this is a circumstance that he was an active participant in.
Yeah, he took the decision to do the act he did.
And if you look at the lead domino in it, he's laughing on the joke before, he's laughing on the joke during. And the joke itself, whilst insensitive, is not appropriate to the proportion of violence that was put on Chris.
Definitely not. There's been much worse things said and no actions were taken.
Yeah, like someone said, well, what if she's critically ill and she's lost her hair as a result of that? I'm like, well, that's fair, totally fair.
Yeah, fair.
And I can see why that would burn up the emotions inside them as a family and inside him as a man. But I didn't know about that, and they've not been public about it. Turns out afterwards I found out that she does have alopecia, and she has been public about it. For whatever the reason is, we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We also don't know if they've had a long-standing beef.
Yeah,
you never know, right? Like these guys have access to pubs and bars and house parties and things that we don't know about.
There's no media behind it. Nobody ever speaks about it, and
there can be. We hear about you mentioned it, right? Like J. Cole and Diddy had an issue, and then Drake and Puff had an issue as well, and little scuffles happen that are never on camera,
and that will never be spoken about. Yeah, ever.
No one ever knows the details.
Yeah,
and this is back doors of elite people's lives, but they are still normal humans.
Yeah, exactly.
They do clash. They do. They might be, in our eyes, they might all be equals and great and gods, but in their eyes, they're equals. They're peers. They see eye to eye. They can say, they can hang out whilst drunk and say inappropriate things. They can just generally not have. Certain cats might just not have a certain chemistry with each other.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this. When I was in LA years ago, we met a bunch of rappers. Well-known rappers that had done records together, but we met them in a certain order. And I met one of them before I met the other. And I said, it's so dope. I'm looking forward to coming out here and meeting you and meeting this other rapper. And, I'm looking forward to us all hanging out together. And he goes, no, we won't be hanging out together. And I was like, why not? He goes, I don't really F with him like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, but the amount of projects you got coming out, he goes, nah, but I don't really mess with him.
Yeah,
like
fair.
that.
Like, just because they work together in the industry and we all see them as you said, gods. Like, at the end of the day, some people just aren't friends with each other.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
you just don't click, and just because you're both famous doesn't mean you have to hang out with each other.
Yeah, yeah. I know some people that are known as a collective act, and they don't. You will never see them around each other unless they're on stage.
It's part of that.
Yeah, like they see each other on the day of in the green room. There's no beef. They'll hang out, talk, catch up. Hi, how are you? How's the kids? How's the wife? Mic check. The time to go on stage. Come back. Done. Finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then we don't see each other until the next show.
Fair.
So it's one of those things. But again, we say all that to say this. It was a big moment in content, a big moment in the culture. Glad that you were able to take the time from doing nothing to talk about it, Alex. Really appreciate it. I know that it's difficult for you to find time in your vacuum of emptiness.
Wow, crazy, right?
Let's do this because it's an emergency pod. Let's give a couple of quick shout outs. Number one, shout out to my girl Sana, who is not even Hindu but sent me a beautiful box of chocolates from Blooming Box for Holi last week.
That's nice.
It is nice. I didn't really know it was Holi.
Really?
Because I've seen a bit of stuff on the internet, but I wasn't.
I only know because I saw one drone clip and I was like,
Yeah,
then it shows.
So she sent me that, so big up to her. So she's just so lovely. She sends gifts every so often, and I need to definitely carve out more time to hang out with her. So big up to her. She's awesome. And also, I want to big up your friend who came out the other night. We'll do a separate bit on the night out we had the other day with the night out with Pavan and Mazi, but at their concert. But big up to your friend Nick.
Yeah, he was here.
Who is basically a 19-year-old 6'2" human sex doll. Basically, that's basically what he looks like. I looked at him. I was like, I reckon I could get about 3,000 dirhams an hour off for him. Like if I just shipped him out to a bunch of like 50-year-old women, I was like, probably make some good cash on that kid. So basically, he big up to him. Such a nice guy. He said that he listens to the podcast.
Yeah,
and he also said that you get ripped. When we called you slender and something, what happened? We're talking about Batman.
I don't even know or remember exactly the words.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got roasted.
Yeah.
And it's also my fault because you'll post the clips on your Insta story and then I'll repost them. But and if I don't repost them, there's a very low chance they're gonna go out of their way to see if I have a new podcast I'm on a new episode.
And it makes its way in your personal group chats.
Exactly.
Best. Love it. Okay. By the way, when I say talking about renting out Nick, he is 19 years old and of consenting age, and probably, given time to think about it, it's probably an idea he'd have for himself. So please don't put me out here like I'm some trafficker.
He also won't care that you're saying this.
Yeah. But great kid. I enjoyed hanging out with him the little bit of time that we hung out. So big up to him. Cool. Any other shout outs?
Hey,
let me say this. There are a whole bunch of mental health apps out there. Find them, Better Health and Talkspace and all these other bits and pieces. If there's something about this Will Smith moment that was triggering or you feel like you can relate to, then just go out and get health, because the last thing you want to be doing is just like slapping dudes across the face and then dealing with the outcome.
Yeah, for sure.
The fallout, as it were. So again, what we did miss on a previous episode of Algo that has now been lost is you giving the Spotify show 5 stars for the first time. You're so lucky that that's not in this, but it was only today that we found out that Alex has not rated the show on Spotify 5 stars. So make sure if you're listening on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating like Alex just did. I actually said to Alex, "You've not done it." He goes, "Yes, I have." I said, "If you've not done it, you owe me a sushi samba," which is probably one of the most expensive meals in the city.
Can we just say sushi samba business lunch and not actual sushi samba on a night out?
You just killed yourself again, because the people listening to the podcast think that you're about to buy me an a la carte sushi samba. You know that your price is going to be capped at 140, and yet you just snitched on yourself.
Let's not forget I'm the producer. I can.
Yeah.
No.
So he's going to buy me a sushi samba as a result of that. Now I guess it's a business menu with a captain mark. You're not going to seem anywhere near as gangster. How you get chicks off the back of this podcast, I have no idea. And and speaking of which, how funny that the first working day without Vic, and we have an emergency podcast.
It's
Best.
so good. Dude, I love it.
I'm convinced that he's going to be sat in Mauritius right now. His wife to his left on a sunbed, his son to his right on a sunbed, everyone drinking fresh coconut water, And he's like, God damn it, did Will Smith just slap Chris Rock? These guys are going to record a podcast about it. But listen, try and find happiness in whatever it is that you are doing, Vic.
I'm sure he's having a great time.
I mean, as good as recording this podcast?
Probably not.
Probably not. Probably not. And for the rest of you, speaking of contributing to this podcast, if you've got any thoughts on this, drop me a voice note on Instagram. If we do talk about this in the next algo later on in the week, then we will obviously mention it and we'll play the audio from you as well. So drop that over to us if you want to have a voice on this. Also, Vic's brother Jay's in town, so maybe Jay can sit in Vic's seat. Yeah.
Yeah, we should.
Jay's a chef.
Really?
He won a.
Could be interesting. Yeah,
he won a Netflix show, episode 5, season 1 of £1 Million Menu, where a bunch of chefs, pitch for support from venture people, and he won that. And he's a cool dude. So yeah, we should get him on here. Looks vastly different to Vic.
Like completely.
He's a very good looking guy. Like obscenely so, to the extent where I actually hate him. So we'll get him on. Yeah. No, I don't hate him. So he's a good looking dude and funny, and if he's available this week, then we'll get him to come and host Algo on Vic's behalf. If not, I'm sure we'll hear from him whilst he's here. Hope you enjoyed the show. 5-star rating and review on all podcast platforms. Subscribe button on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Boom, boom, bang, bang, bang. See you on the next episode. Peace.